for it.
And you're not sure anymore.
No, we're not sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. Merely a formality.
Hello.
I'll take everything. Get the notes and everything. All right, let's call the meeting to order of the Main Street Board of Directors. The special meeting on April. Last slide. It's today. April 19th. Oh, it's 19th, not the 12th. I was seeing things. April 19th. And you go ahead and took roll call and have everybody accounted for the chair. And we have an agenda in front of us. Is there anything anybody want to add to it? Just a motion to accept the agenda.
Support.
Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, we're gonna move right on and go over to Ben Moltro and let him take the.
Good morning. How are y'all doing this morning?
Good.
Good. Wish we had your weather. It's probably much warmer by you. We lost that
You know
weather.
what? It is it's 44 degrees right now. So
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm not.
yeah. It's now granted it says it's going to hit 70 today, but hard to tell. It's hard to tell. So Jay, I do have a question for you. Is there a way that you could give me screen share rights?
You just, I think it's just got them.
Yep, I think you have them.
It's still saying that it's disabled.
Give me just a second. I'm working on it. Hang on.
No problem.
That's the Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
There we go. Perfect. Perfect. All right, let's make sure that y'all can see that. Everybody good?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Well, I do want to just give quick heads up. I see Greg is joining us, and again, big thanks to Lee Young with Michigan Main Street. She's also joining in and going to be listening in this morning. Got a ton of stuff to report back to you since the visit last week. Really excited to share both information and some ideas and concepts with you. So I'm going to run through it real quick as quickly as I can, and then we'll open up and talk a little bit about your thoughts and ideas and whether the overall strategy kind of makes sense. So like I say, I've got a ton of slides, so I want to jump right in. I always like to dig into demographic and kind of get a good understanding of the overall communities. I'll see if I can highlight some of the data sources as I go through these, just so you can kind of follow along. First of all, I go to a website called Data USA. It's a collaboration between Data Wheel and Deloitte Consulting. They give some really interesting information about both demographics and especially workforce data by communities. And so you can kind of see how you all look to the outside world from a demographic standpoint. Population 20,000, median age 34.6. That is super young. Poverty rate 26%. That's not scary at all because you have a bunch of students. That's how they live. Median household income, again, with a combination of retirees and student population, that's going to drive that number down. Median property value, 79,000, but we are seeing a 4% one-year growth, which is outpacing national average. And then you're looking at about 8,700 who are employed in the geography, which is really nice. Demographic, this kind of replicates and reinforces some of the things that we heard about the community, especially with that high presence of Hispanic population and, their role in the community, just the overall diversity. When you compare yourselves to other places throughout Michigan, you definitely have a much more diverse population. And I think it comes through in a lot of the things that we heard from the community itself. Now, these next couple of slides are just interesting graphic representations of the overall economy itself. These are our occupation types. So as you look at all the jobs that exist in Adrian, These are the different kinds. The larger the square, the more jobs you have in that occupation type. So your largest category is production occupations. This is going to be manufacturing sector. Then you can kind of see you're following up with things like food prep and office administration and sales. Those are going to be more of kind of the support. And then in your orange category, that's going to be more of your kind of white collar specialty type jobs. Now, the next slide shows employment by industries. So where those were occupation types, this is the actual industry type. Educational services, even though you have several institutions of higher education as well as your public school system, it is only coming in at 10%, which actually is a good sign for how much presence you do still have in the manufacturing sector. 1 in every 5 jobs is a manufacturing job. 15% of your jobs are in healthcare and social assistance, 12% in retail trade, and another 10%. So almost 1 in every 4 jobs is based in retail and hospitality. So again, pretty diverse. This is a really, really nice blend between a presence of manufacturing as well as those educational services. Typically in a smaller community that has multiple institutions of higher education, the education services sector kind of dwarfs everything else. So it's nice to see this level of balance there in Adrian. Now this just kind of shows you the level of detail you can kind of go into. You can look at the different scales of pay by category and industry. All of them are relatively on par with one another, but then you can also see growth or decline by industry. So you're seeing a big growth in things like arts, entertainment, and recreation, while you're seeing some potentially large decreases in things like administrative support, information technology, some finance, and public administration. Now, this moves into our institutions of higher education and shows us the diversity of the concentrations that they're offering in their studies, with that biggest sector being business admin and management. So you start to see some interesting connections between the jobs you have in the community and some of those focuses and concentrations from our institutions. And again, with our master's degrees, looking at business admin, org leadership, and also a lot into mental health and athletic training. And then this is just the breakdown. I'm not sure if y'all have ever kind of seen this, but about 30% of your graduates are coming from Adrian College, about 70% Siena Heights. Again, breakdown in diversity. You've got a similar diversity mix in your student population. Your overall kind of income, property value, and property taxes on par, and definitely leaning towards cost of living. We did talk about your rental versus ownership rate, 54% home ownership in the city proper. We would typically expect that in a community with a lot of higher education, but we also heard that the institutions have an on-campus residential requirement. So that is a number that we want to keep our eyes on. 20-minute average commute time from residents in the city to their workplace. That is for all the out commuters. And then pretty much on national average for car ownership. I did dig into what's called Air DNA. This tells us a little bit more information about your short-term rental market. Currently, you have 25 properties that are either on Airbnb or VRBO. That number has been growing steadily over the past 3 years, from about 12 to about 25. So you almost doubled in that 3-year period. You're seeing an average monthly revenue of $1,750 per property, with a high point occupancy rate in July and a low point in February. Apparently, people do not want to come stay in Airbnbs in Adrian, Michigan in February. And then you also kind of have an average you've got your highest average daily rate comes in August. And I think one of the things that we talked about while we were there was the combination of students moving in, as well as I believe y'all told me that the NASCAR race is also in August. So those kind of fit in with all of those dynamics. Now, a couple more. I did do a quick comparison between you all and Lenawee County, just to kind of throw that in there. Remarkably similar. You all seem to mirror and probably very much set the pace for a lot of those jobs and kind of occupation types, very much on par. And one of the only big things, and we would absolutely expect to see this, is the home ownership rate jumps tremendously when you start to look at the county as a whole. That is very, very typical. You expect to see higher rental rate in your cities and a higher home ownership rate out once you get into the counties. Now, one final thing from this data set that we looked at is what's called inflow outflow. This uses the Census Bureau data to look at what happens during the day. Every day you have 1,900 residents who wake up in the city of Adrian and go to work in the city of Adrian. You have 5,100 who leave to go to work every day. And then you have 8,200 who come into the city. So you grow by 3,000 people each and every day. If you notice the radar chart on the left, this shows us the direction and the distance from which people come to commute into your community. The darker the color, the closer they are, the lighter, the farther away they come. You do see that you have your largest sector is coming from the Northeast. So that is All Points Northeast, that is, Ann Arbor into Detroit Metro, and then also Northwest. So All Points leading up towards kind of Grand Rapids. Now, for your out commuters are overwhelmingly closer. And if they are traveling towards the Detroit Metro. They are traveling Northeast. But overwhelmingly, the people who live here and work somewhere else are actually working pretty doggone close. One in every two of them is working within a 24-mile radius of the city itself. So that kind of helps us to understand, you grow by 3,000, but the people who are out commuting are actually staying pretty close, which means they're able to be more active in the overall market. So that gives you that opportunity to really treat your overall downtown market size as a much larger population number than just the people that live in Adrian. Now, from that, I did look at a retail leakage study. The state oftentimes shares with the Main Street programs ESRI data. We did one on what's called Claritas. That's the other data house. I looked at three different areas: 5-minute, 10-minute, and 15-minute. I wanted to show you what happened when you look at the 15-minute drive time. It does not get us over to Blissfield. It does not get us all the way up to Tecumseh. So this is a very, very viable market with no real competitor inside it. And what we see in that market is every single year, the customers in that market are spending $706 million, but the stores are only selling $538 million. So every single year, you are leaking $166 million out of the market. That's money that we can capture. That's money that is real money that already exists. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. That shows us true market potential and shows us the opportunity. So if people feel a little squirrely about, oh my gosh, I don't know, like I'm thinking about opening a business, but I just don't know if the market will support it. We have got, and I'll be able to share with Jay, a full 40-page summary of demographics and market data on each of those drive times, so that if somebody is interested, they can look at what's happening in each of their business categories and figure out how they might be able to capture some of that. Now, a couple other things. You are seeing about $108 million in online sales out of that market. That is falling very much in par. It's actually slightly on the low end of national average. So that's good for you all. People are still buying locally. We know that online sales are going to continue to grow, but everyone is very much forecasting that, as with most other habits, there is going to be a cap. People are simply not ever organized enough to be able to wait a day or 2 days to have things delivered. So there's always going to be a on-site retail component, and this number should not cause us any concern about Adrian being any different than any other market. Your kind of remote proximity to other communities actually lends you to kind of lean a little bit more locally focused than some of the other communities in Michigan we're working with. So this is the extremely sexy data that we'll be sharing with you all, showing that kind of first line. That's the demand. That's all built off of a pretty complex consumer expenditure model that's based off a combination of the jobs that the people in the geography have and also their psychographic profiles. The second column is the supply. That's what the stores sell. And then that final one is the opportunity, the gap or the surplus. So every single time you see a black number, that black number is an opportunity to capture money that already exists. Every time you see a red number, that's a category that you are already winning on. And when you're already winning, that doesn't mean, oh my gosh, we're at market saturation. There are definitely some categories that you can build off of that winning and create a true mega market kind of niche and kind of a market center. So restaurants are definitely one of those things where when you get enough, it actually creates a larger market that serves them, because you get that destination status of, we'll just go to Adrian and figure out what we're going to do once we get there. So there'll be 2 pages of retail leakage per drive time. There also will be 2 pages of retail growth projections. This is going to arm Jay with the information to be able to share with business owners projected growth by business category. So hopefully that will lay the stage for some of our overall kind of analytic and kind of numbers base. I wanted to hit on a couple of other things that people talked to me about while I was there that don't necessarily fall directly in line with the branding recommendations, but I feel like if I'm hanging out with you and we're working on something, let's see if we can share as much as possible. So one thing that I do want to share, we've kind of created a guide alongside with Randy Wilson from Community Design Solutions on the different levels that a community or a DDA can kind of look at to deal with vacancies. You guys don't have a ton of vacancies in your district. One of the biggest things that we kind of talked about was you do have some property that maybe is unavailable to acquire. You also have some property that is very much used from a service standpoint, but could possibly be utilized in a slightly different way. But what I'm going to share with you all is a document that will walk you through everything from a very simple early warning database, which is literally a Excel spreadsheet, to minimum maintenance orders, visual enhancements, which can come in the way of facade grants, things like that, as well as financial incentives that fall in that category, vacant building registries, all the way up to slightly more heavy-handed things like receiverships and acquisition, and even looking at land value tax. So again, not going to spend a ton of time on it this morning, but just want to share with you all some strategies that kind of help to make sure that not only are your spaces full, but they're used to their potential. So it'll kind of walk you through each of those categories. And then the next thing that I want to talk about is what we call right size retail. And I've been talking about this for the past couple of years. I just updated these numbers this morning. In America right now, the national average for commercial office space is hitting $38. Now, obviously, you're not seeing that rate, I wouldn't imagine, in Adrian, but that is kind of law of averages, while the national average in retail has finally hit $24. So when we think about our historic retail spaces. The average historic retail space in America in a historic property is about 1,800 square feet. Now, let's just say hypothetically that based off some national averages, that's going to generate $2,000 a month if a retail tenant is in there. So that retail tenant now has to get the inventory to fill that entire 1,800 square foot space up. They have to create the inventory turn to be able to make $4,000 just in sales, just to cover rent. Where understanding that there is a delta between commercial demand and commercial price versus retail price, what if we take this same space and we start to reallocate that space? We start to create micro or smaller retail front ends with service-based back ends. Now, this kind of shows you if you broke that 1,800 foot space into 600 feet of office and 1,200 in retail, and you charge that office tenant national average, now all of a sudden that retailer's rent rate goes from $1,900 a month to $825. Now, if you play it out mid-range, half and half, you're generating 1,700 out of the back. That front whole half only has to generate 242 to make the same. And then if you create a shallow micro retail front side, then you could literally give that away for almost free and still generate more income per square foot than you would off of a retail base. So this idea that as a person is experiencing a place, they never measure how deep a retail store is, but they absolutely pick up on a break in the rhythm. They pick up on insurance office, financial, planner office, bank, all these stores that there's not really an opportunity for them to go into. So thinking about this idea of right sizing retail, thinking about where it might make sense to recapture some fronts of bays and explore some micro retail opportunities. This has kind of led into a whole wave of pretty cool projects across America. This is one in our downtown in Delaware, where this was a giant engineering firm. And you can actually see all these offices with the windows along the storefront. Nobody was in any of those offices because they actually complained that they were too hot. So we simply showed them how they could kind of recapture these small retail bays. They were able to introduce 3 new businesses into this storefront in space that the engineering firm was paying for, but really dramatically underusing. This is a former skating rink where we showed how they could kind of open that up and create more small units to be able to kind of take advantage of a different look and feel. And then these are some projects that we worked on along the Mississippi Gulf Coast after Katrina. We actually used these Mississippi cottages to create micro retail clusters, which I know is a project that you all have kind of talked a little bit about with some of the vacant properties that you have in your downtown. This was a collection of 20 or so of these micro retail units. The city partnered with Habitat for Humanity, who built a connected boardwalk. And all of these, because the city was actually given these structures by the state after they pulled them out of use from temporary residential for rebuilding after the storm, they were able to offer these at a very affordable rent rate. And then what the city did was turn all of that rent revenue directly back into marketing revenue for the development. So just to show you a little bit about some of those trends, these are some designs that we've been playing around with for years, what we call tiny shops, being able to create these small micro retail units that can create a denser sense of space and start to activate properties and hopefully help to connect customers through different nodes of your downtown to create more vibrancy and more economy, and also more accessibility for smaller businesses. Now, one of the big things that has been kind of a change in the way that we have talked about these is we love to use the term incubator in this business for some reason. Incubator assumes that you, quote, grow out of it. But one of the big things that we really have started to understand is in modern retail, we're seeing a much higher inventory turn each year, where it used to be we would turn our inventory 2 to 3 times a year. Now we're creating smaller spaces with a lower price startup inventory with a much higher inventory turn, 8 and 9 times a year. So these micro retail spaces might actually be the perfect permanent size for some of your businesses. So just wanted to kind of help to talk a little bit about that and some of the things that folks have been doing across the country. So with that, that concludes all the boring front end stuff, and we get to dig into the actual branding recommendations themselves. So with the overall branding process, we always like to look at what you all have. You definitely have the maple leaf nailed. Every maple leaf is covered. You love a circular logo in Adrian. I mean, we got it all. I will say this, you've done a pretty good job with color consistency, because of the strength of kind of the maple design, combined with the relatively consistent blue and white implementation on both the city side as well as the public school side. And then even looking at where Adrian College has got this strong kind of yellow and black or gold and black, and then Siena Heights has this yellow or gold and blue. Everything has ended up becoming very institutional and very corporate. It's a very simple color system, and from a institution standpoint, that's great for higher ed. It's great for our city, but for our downtown, we want to kind of build out and maybe give some more shades. We don't really want to open it up and have a huge palette of color because you all have been so unbelievably consistent, but we want to kind of play off of some of the strengths of what you have. We do try to do a good bit of research on history. I love anytime I find some of these good kind of historic maps that just kind of show how the community has grown and evolved over time. You can see downtown and its dense structure, see the river, running past it to the west as it does, really, really interesting. And then kind of industrial base down in the southeast quadrant. You all, and I stated this while I was there, you all have a much stronger connection to Lenawee County and that Lenawee identity than a lot of the places we work, especially in Michigan. So you have a lot of efforts, whether it's the kind of newly repackaged Greater Lenawee Chamber of Commerce, whether it's that Lenawee Now with our economic development efforts, Visit Lenawee with our tourism efforts, even to, One Lenawee, Get Lenawee, anything we can put, a word with Lenawee, we've done it. So, you all have this kind of strong connection with that Lenawee identity. And then finally, we kind of wrap back around to our DDA, our downtown Adrian, and some of the things that kind of live in y'all's realm. So you started to kind of play around with this idea that, hey, we'll do blue, but let's do some shades of blue. So I think that there's some stuff going in the right direction, but we really just want to freshen this up and give you a good, strong system. Now, as we approach this, we kind of look at it from 4 different perspectives. We look and think about our colors. We want to use color continuity. You all are nailing that, but we want to expand that color palette a little bit and give you some more shades so that downtown can really start to have a look and feel that is its own. We want to give enough of a gap so that businesses in the community comfortably market downtown without feeling like they're using the city of Adrian's look and feel. We need to preserve a certain amount of kind of formality to the city government. When somebody goes in as a codes official, like they need to look official. So we need to work a little on that destination brand development. Typefaces, we're recommending 3 different typefaces for consistent application throughout the system. Our overall approach to graphics, we've kind of stayed in the world of of maple. That makes sense, but we got you a really cool, clean version that I think is going to go a long way. And then also our approach to our message, where again, when focusing on a downtown, we want it to be connecting. It does not have to be some sort of message that nowhere else can say. Downtown is a subset of the Adrian brand. It's more of the collector message. It's the thing that says, this is where we want to come together. And I think that's important for us. So I'll walk you through all these recommendations now. So with our colors, we started out with that Adrian blue. We went through and I actually thought it was kind of interesting after analyzing everything that was in there. Essentially what we have is we have blues, we have some yellows that come from our institutions of higher education. And then if we're public works with the city, we've got red vehicles. So I didn't want us to spread the spectrum out too far. I did want to give us a good, rich, dark indigo blue as a base. So we went with the darker blue. I essentially adopted some of the lighter shades of blue themselves that you all had been using from downtown. And then I actually tried to create a color spectrum that existed between the Adrian blue and our college blue. I mean, our college yellows. So that's where these greens kind of come in, and they're green on the blue side of green. But the nice thing about this is this color spectrum essentially connects in between your city and school spectrum and your college's spectrum. So it gives us this really nice opportunity for downtown to be that visual connector. Now, from a typeface standpoint, again, we landed on 3. Our primary typeface was picked particularly because of the way that Adrian looks in it. Again, everything from a city standpoint, you're using a really nice traditional serif typeface. And I wanted to give you all something that was a little bit more content neutral, a little bit bolder, had a little bit more weight to it so that you could get that kind of name continuity. That secondary typeface is just it's again a sans serif typeface. It has a narrow horizontal scaling. What that means is the words are narrow so that we can say more in a smaller space. And then finally, we did go with an accent script. I've never really used this one before. Scripts are real hard to read. We don't use them very often, but when we want that kind of hand touch, when we want to almost make people slow down, stop, and read something, that's where using a script typeface is important. So that kind of sets the tone for where we're going with the overall kind of look and feel. The word type, as you can kind of see with this nice boldness, I think I really, really like this rounded over A as a top. It will give us a really good opportunity to have kind of a signature look where you can literally just say Adrian and have it look connected. I also really love the very subtle curvature on the leg of the R. It feels like it almost has kind of a flow like the river, but you know, again, still very rigid and very bold, so it makes it easy to read. Now, with that leads us in to our message. And before I put this up, I like to kind of put together a brand narrative and just kind of talk a little bit about what I felt like I saw and what I felt like I heard you all say and how that leads into the overall system. So I'm going to read that for you right now. In downtown Adrian, life's rhythm beats with the pulse of the community. Where every day echoes, it happens downtown. Mornings hum with the lively chatter of the farmers market, where fresh produce and artisanal delights tempt the senses as classes begin at our local colleges, where knowledge and ambition pave the path to a brighter future. Our streets come alive with parades, their rhythmic march celebrating the essence of Adrian's diverse community. Our small businesses join in as they foster innovation and provide unparalleled service to residents and visitors alike. As the day unfolds, the tempo picks up with events that bring the community together. Street fairs, concerts, and outdoor movies creating shared memories in the heart of the city. The arts play their melodic part too, with galleries and studios inviting curious minds to explore the vibrant colors and textures of the local creative spirit. Our trails, both beaten and undiscovered, whisper an invitation to walk and bike our place. These paths unfold like the roots of a tree, leading to amazing opportunities and adventures that nurture the soul and strengthen the ties that bind. In downtown Adrian, every leaf, every beat, every color converges, creating the soul of our community. And as the sounds fill the air, they remind us it happens downtown. So this idea that downtown is the stage, it is the community's stage, it is the place where everything comes together, it is the place where life happens. So with this, you can kind of see this look and feel that we're suggesting. Being able to tap into what we call duotone imagery, being able to bring that brand color out through your streetscape. You can see this kind of introduction of this stylized leaf graphic with our shades. It's got a lot of flow to it, got a lot of rhythm to it. We've got several different builds of this, but now instead of insetting this maple NRA, like that has been the graphic standard from kind of the municipal standpoint. You've seen it extended into the P's of our parking signs. All those, I think, make a ton of sense. But for this allows us to really have it almost set as the cap to our eye. It gives us this opportunity to have this kind of visual center that kind of brings people into the word itself. Gives us some interesting ways that we can layer those together and create different versions. Works in reversed out on that dark indigo blue, works off the white. And being able to just kind of see how this look and feel can start to create to spotlight some of your businesses downtown. This idea of it happens downtown, it's so simple that it's infinitely expandable. And that's what's so beautiful about it. It's created that platform to tell the story of all the different things that happen downtown that people might not know about if they haven't been here. So with those dominant photos and those simple messages, it builds that kind of expandable system. Now, we also wanted to look at the organization themselves, especially DDA. And, with DDA and with your relatively new Main Street designation, one of the things we did want to throw out to you all, I think that DDA has a very credible and kind of formal identity to it. But as you continue to walk through the energy of kind of the Main Street movement, it does open the door for a greater level of involvement from the citizen side. So you might consider the addition of Main Street Adrian. And with this, what we've done is we've introduced a kind of stylized A icon here. This is where we want to kind of introduce this more economic development oriented icon. Because of this continuity, you can still tie this in to DDA. But it gives you this overall system where you can talk a little bit more about the standard 4-point approach. You all have done some other things interesting there, where it's like, not only do you have organization, design, promotion, and economic vitality, but you also have committees like Town and Gown, which I'll talk about in a minute. Again, with this simple approach, it's an easy tie-in with DARA. But now all of a sudden you can start to tell people about how things are powered by Main Street. And, DDA to a certain degree, because of the way that DDAs are created and because of the way that they're funded, sometimes they become a little harder identity to be able to cultivate volunteer spirit, sponsor spirit, all those kind of things behind. So I just want to throw this out there for you all to consider as you move forward, some strategic ways that you might be able to roll the Main Street identity into your mission and all of your tasks moving forward. Now, with this, we also wanted to take a look at our brand extension. Again, once you set the stage for this, your colors begin to be very, very important, and this icon becomes very adaptable. So again, taking those institutional colors, rolling them in with Town and Gown, going through and doing very simple adaptations, like, right now your city market's just a shopping bag. So, taking that and kind of rolling that into a brand for that. Again, bringing pride in. You can give this brand system and make this destination brand available to events and organizations in the community. And because of its simplicity, it has an inherent expandability. And that expandability goes a long way for us. And then you even have some that have really, established looks and feels, but through things like color adoption and some of those typefaces, they can preserve the look and feel that they have while still adopting components of that overall brand system to help them kind of move forward through that. We also showed a couple other things. We call these guerrilla wayfinding signs. These are very conversational. They're focused in on bikers and walkers. They're typically produced on corrugated plastic. You can essentially do a system of probably 50 of these for the cost of one wayfinding sign. But this really helps to maximize the economic impact of our pedestrian and bike traffic, helps to kind of increase circulation and increase discovery throughout our district. And as you know, with your district, you are not a simple linear street, but instead you are a grid, and you want to promote that true kind of exploration and circulation throughout your grid. Showing how you might be able to take advantage of some traditional street banners in between your digital banners. I love the digital banners. One of the things that I do think is kind of interesting with you all is creating this sense of like exploration nodes. So it's very easy to know what your 100% intersection is, but you could imagine if you're standing at that 100% intersection and you're looking in each direction, if down each direction on these new period poles, if we now had these single color banners, one color running down one leg and a different color running down a different, it creates this sense of there's so many different directions to explore, and that can be really, really beneficial to you all as you help people to understand your district. Jay and I talked yesterday about some things like using the brand to be able to simplify processes through the community. So we're going to set the stage for some of those tools as well. And then we've gone through and we've created a whole host of implementation tools for you to try to make the rollout and kind of the maximization of a brand system as easy as possible. So the first is a one-page implementation checklist, everything that we have ever thought of in terms of branding implementation, all put onto one page, broken up into 3 phases so that you can start to go through and create a good plan for how you're going to roll this out. The second, how to be a brand partner. This is for other organizations, event organizers, and businesses in your district to think about how they might be able to take advantage of the brand system. A communication worksheet for our DDA to think about all the different avenues we might use to communicate, what committees or kind of facets of the organization would be in charge of that type of communication, how regularly it will be, and then what audiences it'll connect with. A strategic event calendar. Even though DDA does not put on a lot of events yourselves, you're a bit of that conductor. So being able to kind of map out and think about the vibrancy and the activity level over the course of the year, and maybe help to organize any event or vibrancy gaps over the course of the year. A photo asset checklist, starting to think about and build all the images of your district so you can easily tell the story of what's going on in Adrian. A social media strategy, approaching a month-by-month theme with a standardized approach to day-by-day posts so that we can get out ahead of that. And I think when we spoke last week, we talked a little bit about how you all are kind of in line to get an intern, I believe, and I think this could kind of tie into that very nicely. And then finally, a brand score tool, which is an opportunity for you to self-assess your own implementation and go through and kind of identify low-hanging fruit so you can continue to successfully move this forward. So with that, almost 45 minutes on the dot. That is what we were able to put together since last week. I would love to hear thoughts, general first impressions. Does the strategy make sense? What you think?
Very impressive. It's quite a lot of information to take in. But I think each piece is a valuable piece of information.
Fantastic. Thank you.
It's great to have it all in one place. Will you be providing us a written document that we can take a look at some of the information with more opportunity to absorb some of that?
Absolutely. What I will do, and thanks for that question. So first of all, we will go through and not only have a recording of this presentation, but also share a PDF of this presentation so you're able to dig in a little deeper. Then as we move towards completion, we also are going to create a comprehensive style guide document for you for the brand. It will describe all the components of it. It will define all the colors, define all the typefaces. We'll purchase all the typefaces for you to be able to use and share. And then every logo that you see, we're going to save in 5 different file formats so that you always have the right tool for the right job. And everything will be shared and delivered through a digital delivery system. So as a DDA, you will have the opportunity not only to access all the tools, but to easily share all the tools with other partners throughout the district.
And then do we have an opportunity to continue our consultation with you as we process and begin to use some of the information that you've given us?
Absolutely.
And is that
Absolutely.
part of what we do, Jay? Is that, I mean, forgive me if I don't have that, but I think that that's a process that would be helpful as well. That we confer with you as we use the information you've given us.
Great.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things that's kind of cool about this particular process is you all are actually part of a Michigan branding cohort. There's kind of a class of communities that is getting the branding services this year. So after we complete all the branding development for those communities, there will actually be a series of implementation meetings with all of the cohort together. So we'll have an opportunity to address challenges, address implementation issues. So it's not over today. There's good continued support and continued guidance along the way, which I think will go a long way.
Hey, Ben, I have a question about the typefaces.
Yeah.
You said I have a question about the script. I'm just wondering rationale. You said you normally don't include a script, and you did for us. I just want to hear more about why you made the decision.
I use scripts. I actually use scripts a lot as accent typefaces. I'm always a little hesitant because I'm fighting a mindset that exists in a lot of communities where it's kind of like, oh, we're pretty, so we should write Adrian in this beautiful script. And the thing is, like, scripts inherently have a legibility challenge. So when I do use them, and what I should have said, I've never used that script typeface before. I use scripts as accents a good bit. This is a new typeface that has just recently been released. That one of the nice things about that is scripts, because of the way that they work, they kind of work a little bit in trends. This particular one was designed with a certain weight to the letters to make it a little bit more legible. But scripts are kind of a funny one. Like, if I were to give a summary of the feedback and refinements that happen during most of these processes, the thing that probably gets tweaked or edited the most is, can we see a couple different versions of the script? And the thing that you'll kind of get in your I guess your palette on that is you'll start to kind of land a little bit on what words you're most likely to use the most, and then make sure that the script works with those words, because sometimes scripts will have a funny little letter. The letter capital I in particular can be real crazy sometimes. So being able to just kind of match it up and make it fit. But I just liked the weight of it compared to the weight of the primary and secondary. I felt like they made for a nice match, but that stuff's always on the table for us.
The description you wrote, is this the first time we're all hearing it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it editable?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I was just,
Yeah.
for me, I liked it a lot. I just, when I heard it, there was a couple things that came to mind. Like,
Ab-
you talked a lot about the evening life, waking up and the parades and all of this stuff, but you missed maybe some of the day-to-day stuff, like the smell of a cup of coffee from Musgrove. You used the word arts, but didn't mention our beautiful theater specifically.
Yep. No, you're
Um,
right. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And
like
please,
and the trails, like the people coming in on the bike trails, I love the bike trails, but the downtown thought is as soon as you mention those bike trails, the first thing I think of is homeless people coming up the trails. So those are just a couple inputs there. And also, like, I'm all for us pumping up the farmer's market, because I know we're moving towards marketing it, but maybe not the first paragraph of our description is the farmer's market.
I
gotcha.
think that was
Yep.
more of just a vision statement, right, Ben? It wasn't like something that you were just using that to help set the stage for the vision of what you were presenting to us. It's not like a paragraph that we're gonna have on our website, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, probably not. I think that, I mean, first of all, your question is spot on. I mean, there's absolutely no way that I'm going to hit all the points in my first stab at it. So I'm glad that in hearing it, you kind of understand the value of being able to kind of talk about some of this in a narrative way. And it's like, oh, we need to figure out how to add this, or we need to readjust that. Sometimes this is simply an internal document. Sometimes it is just a thing to help us understand for ourselves and be able to explain why we're going down the creative direction we are. Other times it does turn into, I mean, I've had some communities that have taken them and turned them into the voiceover of a district video. I've had some that have, I mean, Pascagoula, Mississippi actually took this brand narrative and, you know, set it on top of a really great photo of the community, and the mayor started printing them out and framing them and would give them to people in the community every time he wanted to do something a little special. So I am more than happy to let me tell you, we'll take it a couple different ways. If there's some things that you'd love to see how I would integrate into it, feel free to just make a list and send that over Jay's way, and he'll get it to me. But then I'm also going to supply this to you as an editable Word document. And there is absolutely, you have 100% creative freedom to take it, tweak it, edit it, change it, however you see fit to work the way that you want to. We have had some communities where the way that I kind of approach it with this paragraph by paragraph, kind of trying to cover a certain essence or certain component of it, you know, those sometimes actually work very well as a body copy on an ad or something like that. So we do want it to be a useful tool to you all. First and foremost, it is to kind of help to share and kind of show the overall general direction that we're looking, but absolutely we will we'll tweak in and add anything we can and then pass it on to you to take and run with.
It was actually a beautiful commentary from somebody who doesn't live here about our community. So I have to thank you for that vision, if that's what you saw and felt about us. But you're right. I mean, I do agree that we would have added a few other things to it, but
Absolutely.
it was a beautiful statement about what you saw, and I appreciated that, as well as all the other insight you brought to our community.
Well,
And I
thank
do
you so
thank you for your work as a whole. It was wonderful.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I like the logo though. I like I like the maple leaf on top of that,
Yeah.
Adrian.
Yeah, with that, Ben, I want to ask a question. You talked about evolving into the Main Street, and you had the triangle and that particular type of logo. Whereas we led with maple leaf over the eye and the different typesets. So when you talk about that progression, we've never really let go of first Adrian with the maple leaf, all the colors and the way that happened. How do you envision that we start using that Main Street brand in parallel, or is it parallel, or is one take over the other?
So let me make sure, let me start to answer it and then just interrupt me if I'm not answering it right. So the Maple Leaf and the Downtown Adrian, that is the destination brand. That is a identity that should openly and freely be shared with our business community. That is the thing that everyone who owns a business downtown, owns a building downtown, goes to an event downtown, those are all investors and contributors and owners of the destination brand. So that's kind of one side of things. And then the other side of things is this relationship between the DDA as a, you know, an entity, a kind of government and kind of city-based entity, and all the things that you do to create vibrancy, to cultivate the market, to provide expertise, to steer and guide the experience. That is where the kind of stylized A, and that, in my mind, that's going to exist on a spectrum between DDA and Main Street. And, you know, what does that look like? I mean, a lot of times, you know, are you the Main Street board or are you the DDA board? What do you want Main Street to mean as a designation for you all? You can absolutely be Adrian DDA, a Michigan Main Street organization. Like that is one solution. That is, we can make that happen and we can build out that logo system to have all of that. But the thing that we have found is by kind of leaning into the Main Street organization identity a little bit, sometimes it does open your up a little bit for maybe more participation, maybe more inclusion, maybe more volunteer like understanding or willingness to kind of connect. So, you know, I think that's something that you all just need to think a little bit about from your standpoint of where do we need people to understand and support what the DDA does? How could we leverage a greater level of connection or support organizationally? But understand that all of that is different than cultivating the value in downtown Adrian.
I kind of see it like the Main Street, you know, entity, the logo for the Main Street entity is more of our business relationships, more of a little more serious, and you get to the DDA or the downtown Adrian, and that's the fun, right? That's the marketing, that's you see it everywhere, you know where it is, you know what it means and where it goes. And the other one is kind of our relationship one with the city or with, you know, investors or, you know, fundraising and things like that, where this is the thing, you know, when we have a developer come in, this is who he communicates with. He doesn't communicate with downtown, he communicates with the Main Street organization. So that's kind of what I see as a differentiator there.
Is it almost like a the fun one, the downtown one, you know, with the eye with the maple leaf, and it's almost like that is the signature, the John Hancock on it is the one with the A that looks like that, like down at the bottom of whatever that is on that literature, or the back of a brochure or whatever it might be.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. So like if you were doing a brochure to promote downtown, then the thing that's going to be at the top, the thing that's going to be big, that's going to be the maple leaf, that's going to be the downtown Adrian. And then, you know, at the bottom of the last panel, you're going to say powered by Main Street. You're going to have that attribution for who was in charge of putting that out. And when you really think about it, I mean, for example, let's say street banners. There really is never a reason to have a Main Street or DDA street banner. Like that's not where we're looking for organizational attribution. But, you know, you want people to believe in the power of Main Street to be transformative. You want people to believe and trust in the actions and decisions of the DDA board. And to a certain degree, and this is not y'all's fault, this is Michigan's fault. You know, when you look at DARA, like DARA as an example, DARA is actually a framework that creates rules that allow you to get in trouble. It is a set of rules. It's a set of rules that allows you to do something fun, right? But the thing that we want is we want downtown Adrian to be enhanced because we have this amazing social district. And then Dara becomes this kind of set of rules that we have to follow to make sure that we're doing things right. And so it's an interesting dynamic of how to kind of navigate and manage all those. And that will definitely be in every community. I mean, I think about colleges and universities. They have academic brands and then they have athletic brands. And the athletic brand, that's more fun. That's where, like, you know, there's probably a kind of a greater sense of pride connected to that. There's a lot of merchandising that comes from that. There's a lot of kind of market-based movement that happens where the primary brand stays the same, but its ability to stay connected with market trends, that exists on our athletic side, where our academic side is a little bit more rigid. And with this system, our organization side, that's kind of the more rigid. That's the economic development, the organization we can trust, the thing that's making change, where the Maple Leaf and the downtown, that's our fun. That's our thing that's a little bit more market driven and adaptable.
What do you suggest for the brand adoption at this point, based on what you've presented? Are there different stakeholders that we should start talking with us about? Should we be having specific steps to give our thoughts as a DDA?
So I think in terms of the two questions in one, I think from a refinement standpoint, what I would do is, you know, I would go through and I'll share with you all the video PDF, the presentation. You know, I am more than happy to put together we call it a refinement survey. It's an opportunity for us to ask you some questions after you've had some time to spend on it, you know, where we can kind of break down and get your thoughts and opinions on individual components and, you know, overall, like what do you like? What do you not like? What do we need to tweak? All that kind of stuff. I will say that to a certain degree, it becomes a little problematic when you start to get into the idea of, oh, well, let's start to show it around and see what other people's thoughts are. I mean, you all sat through an hour-long presentation that kind of led to the strategy. And then when we start to just show it, share it, and ask their opinion, you know, oh, sorry, I was getting an echo. You know, you start to get a different kind of opinion where it's just kind of the, do you like it or not? Do you like it or not? I don't know why.
I have just one, I think the logo is great. I share some of the same concerns about the message. I also am concerned that everything that I saw in terms of typeface and the use of that all seems so thick and heavy. And it feels like a lot. The first choice font along with the logo, second choice, even the script, all feel like a lot and kind of, they just feel like too much, as if those are the most prominent options.
Okay.
To me.
Okay.
So I think what Michael's asking is what we want to do as a body, reviewing his PDFs and making some notes, getting it organized between maybe now and next meeting so that you can say, these are the things I like, these are the things I don't like. If you want to get us a refinement survey that we could use as a structure in that as well. But any of those types of things, we should all document and get together on this and get this refined. But it's a great service, tremendous technical assistance.
It's a great start.
It's unbelievable. And I agree with Margaret that you did great with the writing, but I agree with you too, Terry, that there were some things that we need to address on that front. So anything we can do as a group to, as we get back together next time, to refine some of the work that he's done. Great. And I really like the logo and I like the integration that takes place, and even talked about, and I know then you said something in some of that writing that our committees would actually have their own breakdown logos almost and offshoots of this as we start looking at structure. So My biggest fear is I've been through local development so many times that as soon as you start getting too critical on it, and then we have to start from the beginning again. It like blows
Hard to
up.
find consensus.
I will say, I really like the incorporation of the green. I was actually thinking you might do something. I was hoping for the color. It might be the early childhood educator in me that I want a little more color than just blue, but you know, we have the green bike paths downtown. We our leaves on our maple trees, because we are the Maple City, are green most of the time. Never thought about the incorporation of the colleges and, you know, that yellow and blue make green, and, you know, and I really like that, and incorporating that as well. So, I appreciate that. I like a little bit more color. It gives that identity to the downtown. It separates it.
I will say, as silly as this sounds, but from a minor crafter, when you have a clunkier font like that it actually makes a better t-shirt because it shows up better.
It's
Yeah. Thinner.
Yeah, the center, I mean, when you're looking at the branding, you're able to read it better. It gives you that better visual, you know, in that pocket
Yeah.
kind of logo there, so.
But I will say this, I mean, just to go back to the comment about the typefaces, there's some things that I'll fall on the sword for and fight for. I really, having done this for as many communities as I have, I really like the primary. I think it's right for your name. I think that exploring some other secondaries, that makes total sense. And maybe there is some room in there for a nice serif typeface to provide a little bit of consistency, provide a little bit of some kind of letter variation and that kind of thing. And those are perfect kind of refinements for us to kind of look through. So what I'll do is I'll prepare the PDF and go through and share the video and then put together that survey for you all. And in the meantime, you know, if you have thoughts and ideas, what I would actually love for us to do, if it's okay and if it's legal, I'll leave it up to y'all to how the things kind of work. But, you know, I would love for when you all get back together to review it, I would love to have already received folks' refinement thoughts and me to be able to supply you edits so that when you reconvene, you're reconvening to review the edits based off your refinements. So if that's okay with everybody, I'd love to do a digital refinement survey, use that refinement survey as the opportunity to incorporate and kind of look at some other options, and then be prepared to share a kind of a little buffet of ideas and refinements with you all when you reconvene.
Yes, as long as we're all individually doing that, and it's not a consensus, it's not a vote, it's not a quorum, you know, that is completely fine.
Yeah, we can all provide our feedback without having any concerns or issues from that perspective.
Perfect. Okay, that sounds great. Awesome. We all thank you so very much.
Yeah, Ben, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Lee, thank you again. I know you're back there. I wish I was wherever that is.
Here, yes, I had childcare duty this morning, so we were eating breakfast and listening to Ben's presentation. So Louise, definitely a downtowner at heart, loves branding, so that's where I'm
Awesome.
Thank
Well,
you
y'all,
so
thank
much.
you. Thank you all so much, and have a great Wednesday. We'll talk to you real soon, and I'll get this stuff together and I'll get it over to you to Jade later on today.
Okay, thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks.
All right, well, you've heard my comments, so we'll just work on that. Get our ideas into them as soon as possible so we can get some refinements going. And again, want to hear from everybody if possible. Right now, we'll open it up as we do for public comment. Is there anybody in the public who'd like to make comment to this board?
I'm Ashley Cavazos Frank. I live downtown. I've seen many of you. I just had a couple of thoughts that I didn't get to bring up when we were in the focus group and stuff like that. I was in contact with Frank Nagel, who is part of the Adrian line, to get some of his data tables, because downtown was part, like from Main Street this way, was part of that census block that they were researching. So I have his tables. I think Bob Benke gave me your email, so I will just
Okay.
forward those. Just because I think it's important to, while we're doing revitalization and all of these great things for downtown, to remember that half of downtown is in the poorest census tract, the most impoverished census tract in the entire city. So like 2 blocks this way, you will see some of the most extreme poverty in the entire county. So I just think that's important to keep in mind. Our unhoused neighbors, they live here. I've had gentlemen living in my stairwells, and I just kind of let it happen because I know they don't have places to go. So a lot of even buildings on almost all of my neighbors, stands the really bitchy ones over like Bryce and Barley. I think a lot of my friends live at or below the poverty level in downtown. So just need to keep those people in mind. But I'll get you those data people just because I think it's really interesting to look at. I did really like when he said downtown, this is where we go to come together. I'm also on the Lenawee Pride planning committee, and that's a big part of why we wanted to be downtown, because it is the center focus. It is where people come together, and that's why I live downtown. I've lived downtown for this is our 11th year. So my son, we moved here when he was 4 and just starting school, so he grew up downtown, and we love it here, and we love the revitalization. I just want to make sure we're taking everybody with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So any other public comment at this time? All right, are there any other DDA matters that need to come before this board today? Board member comments? We're adjourned. Thank you, guys.